So here I am again. This is my second blog, actually, this time. My first blog, I commented on some people, that I thought possibly could have been misinformed about the death of Michael Jackson. And now it's starting to come out, as you can see on the on the media, or definitely CNN and all those kind of media types, that Michael Jackson, there was foul play involved, like I said. And I had my beliefs that I think the doctor had some sort of he didn't kill him. People are saying he murdered him, like Joe Jackson. Honestly, I think Joe Jackson is speaking the truth as much as people want to hate him. He is speaking the truth every single time he talks. I don't think there's any reason for him to lie. What he says does make sense. A lot of people are trying to twist his words around. But yeah, Michael Jackson, like I said before in my other blog, I think the doctor accidentally killed him. There was definitely some criminal negligence, and he should be held to the same judicial system that everyone else, Joe Schmo, and I can't say everyone else because there are the rich who don't go by the same system that we regular people go by. Yeah, Joe. But I wanted to say something about Joe Jackson because I seen him on CNN, and he was definitely a victim of media, especially CNN. I call the mass media because they're known for twisting things around and making the people who pay them the money or give them the most props, I guess you can say. They make them look good, but the general public, if there's a misconception about somebody, they try to heighten that misconception, and because misconceptions are usually a negative way that it has been misconceived, and then the public gets a hold of that negative news, and then they're like, oh, how could this have happened? And then CNN, what they do is to drive more media attention to themselves, they keep the ball rolling and turn it into a big ass snowball. But anyways, so you gotta watch it. One thing is, you gotta watch out for that media because they'll twist you, and I'm gonna make a comment here showing you that you do gotta look out for these media guys. Joe Jackson, he was on CNN on Larry King. Larry King asked Joe Jackson, he said he didn't ask him he did. He said, there's been allegations of you, and everybody knows Joe Jackson used to beat his kids. A lot of black parents beat their kids. I'll get into that, why that is, after. But they asked him if he ever harmed Michael. He used that word harmed, like because harm is intent, is like there's an intention behind harm, like murdered. There's accidental death. There's somebody got killed, someone died accidentally. Then there's murder, because murder is an intent to commit crime, stemming from that word. So they asked him if he would harm Michael Jackson. Like, Joe Jackson definitely doesn't want to harm Michael Jackson. He never intended to harm Michael Jackson when he beat him. So Joe Jackson declined, and he said, no, I've never harmed any of his kids. Never harm any of his kids. But that word is it's so slight, that word. It's so slight that when the average person hears it, or someone who's not thinking hears it, they say, no, he's lying. He beat him all the time. No, he didn't. But Larry King didn't ask if he ever beat Michael Jackson to discipline him. He asked him if he ever harmed Michael Jackson. And, of course, nobody really looked into that word harmed, but Joe Jackson heard it, and he said, wait a minute, I would never harm my child. Like, no one wants to really harm their child unless they're cuckoo nuts. But, that's another way the media was twisting words around, making him look worse than he is. Trying to, like I said, draw attention to themselves. I think a lot of the media is run by, awful big companies, like before in the 70s or in the 80s, you had those the media guys were the guys who used to deliver the news, like Noah, like they would just deliver that news anyway. They would dig into things, Watergate scandal, all these type of things. They would dig in there. They don't care who you are. They'd dig in there and say, hey, how come you didn't do this to the people? They don't do that anymore because the government has got the control of the media and is now pretty much controlling what you think. They put on TV what they want you to think. So you got to look out for these slight things, especially these little wordplay things that they say. Oh, like harm. You know what I mean? Like if I were to accidentally, like, okay, let's use this. George Costanza on Seinfeld. I think everybody watches Seinfeld. His fiance died because she was licking those the letters, and they were toxic. If that was a true story, and you were to ask, George Costanza was on CNN, and he said, "Okay, George, did you murder your wife or your fiance?" Of course, he's gonna say no because he didn't murder his fiance. She accidentally died from licking too many of those toxic food stamps, which is kind of negligent, but you know. So he didn't murder her. He caused the death, probably. You gotta look at that. You can look into that. They can spin that around any way they want. He either did or didn't. Obviously, he didn't go to jail for that. But you know what I mean. That's another way they could twist the words around. I don't know if anyone's following me here and they get what I'm saying. But anyways, yeah. As I was saying before, like a lot of black parents discipline their children by beating them, and this is a touchy subject because the thing is about that, because I was beat. No, I'm not beat up, but you know that as a form of discipline, I was beat when I was a kid. But it stems back all the way back to the slavery days, when the slave would get out of line in the eyes of the master, and they would whip them. And many years of that, and that's all you know. How on the disciplinary act is beat. I'm sure Joe Jackson's father beat him, and his father, probably a slave. Said it just that's the way he was disciplined. So he did the exact same thing. Joe Jackson didn't really know any other way to discipline. He didn't know talking to them. Joe Jackson obviously ain't the best talker. That's why he does speak the truth a lot of times. He speaks what is in his head, and I respect him for that. I didn't personally like being beat, so I'd never beat my children when I have some. I think there's other ways around it, and that took investigating from me. The norm at that time, when Michael Jackson, for the black parent at that time, who knew no better, was to beat your child. Like I said, that's a very touchy subject, and I think a lot of people can do some investigating on, especially on the history of slavery, and yeah, that's pretty much what I got to say here. I'm gonna actually end this blog now and start a new blog, because I will be honest. The thing I really wanted to talk about was steroids in the media. So tune into my next blog for it. Thanks for listening.